Good afternoon, guys. This is Winter. I'm coming back to you for part two of my three-part discussion of Slipknot's We Are Not Your Kind. I want to start the video by again warning everybody this topic is about depression, it's about thoughts of suicide, and therefore, anyone who feels uncomfortable with those topics, I encourage you to click away now. For anyone who may be suffering through depression or simply needs someone to speak to, there are many resources available. We'd like to provide a few just at the start of the video. The first is the Canadian Suicide Hotline at 1 833 456 4566. In the United States, the Suicide Prevention Lifeline is 1 800 273 8255. Again, these are only North American hotlines. If you live outside of the country, there will be, or the countries, there will be resources available for you, either provided by your own country or by private institutes. I encourage you, if you are having difficulties mentally, please reach out and receive help before it causes more damage to your life. Now, we're going to pick up where we left off when reviewing this album and discussing the topics inside. The song that we're at, for anyone who's following along, is part six, known as Critical Darling. And this song is probably the most flagrantly critical of faith on the entire album. I don't know Corey Taylor's backstory for why he dislikes religion in the way that he does, or appears to dislike religion in the way that he does. But this song does show in fairly clear ways why he feels disdain to religion. I'd like to emphasize this is not necessarily my point of view. I'm merely reviewing the song as part of my overall review of the album. So, the topic here appears to be the pedestal of faith that people put themselves on, resulting in them feeling a holier than thou type attitude. And it does pick up on the theme brought up before in the album that everybody is guilty of something, and everyone has had situations where they didn't have the best intentions. And therefore, when people make themselves out to be better than you, it's not necessarily a fair statement to make. And to always remember when you were talking down on someone, how it would make you feel to have someone else do that to you. So, starting off with the opening quote of the song, "God's in a coma, put faith on a lifeline or on a life support." So, I believe this addresses Corey's belief that either God doesn't exist or he's not attending to humans and their needs, and it seems apparent that faith is getting more rare and difficult to feel. And I think that is true. I think, especially in parts of North America, some parts of Europe, faith is becoming more rare. And it also is becoming more and more difficult for people who have faith to understand why a caring God would put them and the world in the situations that are happening. And of course, there are reasons why, if a God existed, those kind of things would happen. Trials and tribulations are something that do help grow society and people, but it's difficult looking at it from the point of view of, if there's a God that cares about you, why would he make you suffer so much? The next quote, and I think this is probably one of the most important quotes of the song that I can relate to, is "Malevolence and purgatory give you pause. It's a miracle that you haven't broken any laws." So this is an age-old commentary that if the only thing preventing you from deciding to break a law or committing a sin is the fear of the repercussions of that, it doesn't necessarily make you a good person. What makes you a good person is not wanting to do things because you know how it's going to negatively impact others. It's not the fear of getting punished for yourself. And I think what Corey's saying is a lot of people of faith put themselves up on this pedestal that they don't do bad things. But he's saying the reason they don't do those bad things, or at least for some of them, is not necessarily the best way to look at things. And he believes that maybe that's part of what religion was made for, is to discourage people from doing things that they would otherwise do just in their natural state. Another quote I very briefly want to touch on is that he says, "We're not entitled to surviving." Now, this is a pretty glass half empty statement. It's, something that someone who feels bad about life might say, but it is true. Nobody's entitled to living forever. Remember that you live your life once, you impact other people, and you probably would hope that when you die, you've made positive consequences in the people in your life. Remember that when you're dealing with people. You only get one shot, and if you choose to spend your whole life being critical and negative towards other people, at the end of the day, you won't get a chance to take that back. So the pre-chorus talks about what a cliche people of faith can be, and how trying to be good for the sake of showing that you're good is also a cliche. Again, this leads to the commentary that if you're trying to be good, literally just to show people that you're good, it's like putting on a mask. You're making yourself feel better, you're making other people feel better, but you're not truly doing it because you're sympathetic or you're empathetic. You're doing it because you want people to look on you fondly and you want the rewards of being a good person. I think everybody has a little bit of that in them. And I don't even necessarily think the church is in the wrong to try to emphasize that to people. That is how you teach young people good and bad. It's a good way to teach it. Your conscience isn't the only thing that always drives you, and sometimes, especially when you're in a bad situation, it might not be your conscience that pulls you through that. So I don't think things like faith and laws being used to remind someone of good and bad is necessarily a bad thing. But clearly, Corey is taking it to the extreme of a lot of people of faith don't do things for the pure and true reason of they want to be good. Now, I like this part of the song when you get to the chorus, because I think this is somewhat separate from the criticizing of faith. I think this kind of shows how Corey is aware that he's a little bit hypocritical in this song. He's talking about how the church is so critical, but then he immediately talks about how he's breaking a promise he made to himself, which I'm guessing is at one point he promised himself he would be less spiteful, he would be less hateful, but people, or as he's calling them, leeches around him, are draining him of that will to be better. I think that shows a mix of trying to be better, but also acknowledging that these steps he's taking, in some cases, to step forward, are actually making him be the bad guy in other people's life. I mean, this song overall, while I can understand reminding people of faith of this point of view, is it actually helping anything to smack talk someone because of their faith and basically say, you don't deserve to be on a pedestal, you're not that good of a person? While there might be some weight to that argument that being faithful doesn't make you a good person, I know a lot of people of faith who are just good people, and I would say their faith did play a part of it. But I would agree, I also know a lot of people of faith who are not good people. So I think I like the chorus because it touches on the fact that he is trying to say, this is me being a bit of a hypocrite. I promised myself I wouldn't be like this. Now, the second part of the chorus is that we lie and we say it's too late for some. We lie and we say it's too late for some redemption, and then we tell ourselves if it cannot be hell if there is no heaven. So I think these are two things that people with depression or chronic sadness in their life tend to feel and can probably relate to. You get to the point, especially if your depression is caused by some form of guilt, where you tell yourself you don't deserve to do better because you deserve to wallow in your own misery. And sometimes you even question whether or not you could do better if you wanted to. But it's a lie. You can always be a better person. And if part of your depression is guilt and sadness, a huge part of that is trying to improve yourself. Sometimes you can't fix what you've done. That's true. You should try, and you should try to apologize if possible. But it's very important to remind yourself, even if you can't fix things, you can make sure it never happens again. You can never cause that damage to someone again that you've done before, and you can be a positive light for other people. No, it will not fix what you've done to somebody else already. And that's why you should always be careful with the choices you make, especially in anger and spite. but that doesn't mean you can't do better for other people. And then the part where you tell yourself that it can't be hell if you don't believe in heaven. In other words, I think this can be literal faith. If you don't believe in heaven, therefore there's no hell. Therefore, if you do only good, you won't be rewarded. But if you do only bad, you also won't be punished. That's the literal side of this. And I think it allows some people who don't have faith to feel like they can do whatever they want through their life because there's not going to be anything at the end. That's not okay either, because you still should be being good for the sake of being good. And this shows how some people who don't have faith take advantage of that as well. They do bad because they don't believe there will be any long-term punishment. However, I also think this isn't as literal about heaven and hell. I think this is also about when you're depressed, if you think that there's no state of pure happiness, you might not believe that the state that you're in is not normal. And it's true, everyone has some level of sadness and happiness. I don't believe there is any long-term version of pure bliss. I don't think that's a normal thing for 95% of people or more. But if your whole life is miserable, sure, it may not be literal hell, but it is something that you should try to get out of because it's not normal. It is not normal to wake up every day and hating your existence and hating yourself and hating the people around you, or to feel constantly sad, or to feel constantly anxious. Those are not, and I don't want to say normal in a you're not normal, but I'm saying those are not human neutral feelings. If you're constantly feeling like that, that is a warning that you may be falling into depression. And there is a later song that talks about that. I'll go into more discussion on that topic when we get there, because I feel like it's important for people who've never experienced depression to understand what the warning signs are, both for themselves and for people they care about. So the next quote I want to discuss is, once again, we got suffocated in a sick perversion of a spider's web, crawling all over spent digested pieces, celebrating the dead, here come all the judging eyes, got to pave the road with your good or best intentions, I only wish you could see the future that doesn't resemble your crazy inventions. So this is the first hint about spiders. Corey seems to be comparing the people in your life that will eat you alive or eat your soul alive to spiders. And then they get their thrill or their enjoyment or their happiness out of crawling all over the pieces of you that are left after they've ruined your life. I don't know if Corey has someone religious in his life that led him to feel this way, but it's pretty apparent that he has some issue with something or someone of faith. And I can understand that feeling that people have intentionally used up the good in you and then walked away. You know, there are people in this world who want to take advantage of your good side and want to use it as much as they can, and they don't think of the end consequence, or they don't care about the end consequence. But those are the people you need to cut out. You could say it's all their fault, but most people do begin to see warning signs that someone isn't what they think they are, and they lie to themselves and say you're being sensitive, you're being paranoid. And sometimes you're not. And sometimes it's best to step away early before you get truly hurt. Now, the next line in this that I want to talk about is, here come all the judging eyes, because you got to pave the road with your best intentions. I only wish you could picture a future that doesn't resemble your crazy inventions. So this is because Corey's judging faith and he's being critical of faith. So this could be flipped two ways. I'm going to go with the way I think he intended it. I think it's saying because he's criticizing religion, people are going to judge him and people are going to be critical of what he's saying. It's pretty common that if you discuss religion, especially in a negative light, and part of why I was so concerned about covering the song, is you can make a lot of people very angry. And it's fair. You're criticizing something that most of these people who have faith put as a very important thing in their lives. And for you to walk up and basically say it's an invention, which he does say in these lines, it's fair that those people would get offended. It's an important part of them. And it's as much as going up to someone who is married and telling them that marriage is an invention of the modern era and monogamy is an invention of the modern era. It's offensive because it breaks down your core values. And while I don't think anything should be above criticism, I do think it's fair to say that you should be careful how you criticize. There are negative parts of religion and there are positive parts, and I think everyone can see that. So when you're discussing the topic, make sure to be clear. It's okay to have faith. In fact, it's probably a good thing because it gives you that somewhat permanent hope that there's something better waiting for you if you try hard. But on the flip side, don't be the person that shoves your faith down other people's throat or uses your faith to spread hate about other religions or people who don't have faith. That's the negative side that can come with faith, and it can make you a bad person without realizing it. Now, there is a slight change going into the pre-chorus of this song. It becomes more spiteful and angry in tone. It also changes the verbiage, and it sounds very sarcastic and almost as if he's speaking to someone who's found religion. And he's saying that sarcastically, he's happy for them, but realistically, he thinks it made them just another hollow person who's filled of antidotes and false hopes. And he believes that eventually that faith will crash down on them or it will change them as a person. And that's harsh. And I like that in the next part. He says some stuff that sounds like it can almost be talking to himself. He said, it's hard to look in the mirror and open your eyes and to be able to not only open your eyes, understand what you're looking at. I think that statement is probably aimed both at the church and understanding that they're not as pure as they believe they are, but also at himself. He is being that atheist, difficult person who is being just as negative and just as judging towards people of faith as the people who push their faith too much are. And I like that because it's such a apparently intentional duality mirroring. It even uses the word mirror to realize that even though he has these things to say, and clearly he chose to say them, it is somewhat hypocritical. You are not better than someone of faith because you choose not to have faith. That's not how it works. And in fact, it makes you as bad as the worst of people who have faith. So just remember that. But then at the end, he does show some anger again, where he says that he's been catalyzed and he's going to tell you all about it for the savages. Again, I think savages are people without faith. And he is basically saying why he wrote this song. Somebody, possibly his ex-wife, who had a lot of faith, used it to try to change him, try to manipulate him, maybe try to make him feel like he wasn't a good person. And this is his kickback. This is his lashback that you're not that great either. So I have mixed feelings about this song. I like that it appears throughout the song that it's possible the term critical darling might be aimed at himself. But I also get the mixed bag of a few other songs on this album that you could have also just not said it. And as much as I appreciate this album, I do. It was something that I needed to hear myself. This whole album. There are parts of it that it shows how human people are. He's doing the same things in certain parts of this album that he's criticizing other people for. And there are a few pieces of this album that I think risk putting other people into serious depression, especially since this album is something that a lot of people have heard. And therefore, he is putting this very public, and he is shaming people in public. And that ties directly into the next song, A Liar's Funeral. So this ties into depression, and I think it is a very important topic because it talks to, well, it is his ex-wife, but it talks to anyone who, when something goes wrong, feels the need to vilify the other person. That need, I'm not 100% sure where it comes from because I'm not that kind of person. I'm the opposite, actually. I feel the need to vilify myself very frequently, to make myself, I think of myself worse than I believe a lot of other people see me. That could be true or false, but I tend to blame myself for situations, whereas this song is talking about someone who clearly blames someone else for the bad situations they're in with them. So I would guess this is likely a combination of trying to make yourself feel better and also trying to absolve yourself of the blame. And it's also trying to make it so that you can easily move on from the person that you now have left, be it a friend or a relationship, in this case, his ex wife, or he's talking about his ex wife talking about him. So it would be his ex wife trying to move on from him by hating him and making everyone around her hate him. And it's tough because that can be a very quick way for someone to slip into depression. If you are part of a breakup and you genuinely cared about someone, you're already hurt. If you proceed to find out that person is calling you a bad person, making up events, is exaggerating events, ignoring their side of things, and turning your friends against you, it makes you even more secluded. It makes you feel even more alone. And while that other person might be making themselves feel better, they're doing it at your expense. So let's get into the song. The first quote is, "A season at an end, a harvest of seclusion and regret. The burning can begin. A period of ash is what you get. The quiet is a curse, but my respect to you is shown by force. Another day too late, another neck too eager for the rope." I feel like this might actually be some acknowledgement by Corey that he didn't give his ex-wife everything she needed. I'm going to go back and cover the whole topic, but my respect to you is shown by force. Another day too late. Another neck too eager for the rope. I feel like this is, for everything that goes on in this song, she might have beat him down enough to realize himself that maybe he didn't treat her fully right, but it was too late for him to realize that. And maybe the part about another neck that was too eager for the rope is when he finally acknowledged some of the things he did wrong, she used it as a show to be like, well, look, he just agreed he's guilty of everything I said he is. In other words, he hung himself with the rope of trying to own up to what he had done. And that's pretty common. People try to step forward, do the right thing, and admit they did a few things wrong or they didn't handle a situation right, and someone uses it to vilify them even further. And while I can get the point behind that, I also have a dislike for it. If someone's big enough to come to you and acknowledge their side of a situation, don't hang them with the olive branch that they tried to extend to you. That's usually a good opportunity to talk out a situation because they're rarely black and white. It's rarely all one person did something wrong, the other person did something all right. So if someone comes to you with an olive branch, use it as an opportunity to tell them why you feel like they did something wrong, but also acknowledge your own faults. Now back into the actual song. When he's talking about a season at an end, he's very clearly talking about the end of his relationship. And that leads to a situation where all he can feel is alone and regretful of everything that's happened. And he feels like they've burned their entire relationship to the ground, everything around it, everything that was involved with it, and it left a period of ash where there's nothing alive. And because they're not communicating with each other, and no, in this case, no one's communicating with him, the quietness becomes a curse where he feels alone, he feels depressed, and he feels like everyone hates him. That's a fair thing to say, and I feel like that happens very often. People pick sides, and frequently, because of herd mentality, when there's a split up, everyone picks one side. Whether someone did something wrong or not, one person winds up being forced away from a lot of people. And that is unfortunate. Try to consider that humans are human. And even if, I don't support something like cheating, but even if someone cheated, to lose 10 friends over it, plus your girlfriend, plus having everybody know what you've done publicly, is very harsh. And whether or not they deserve it, especially if they feel regret about it, you're causing them a lot of mental damage. And unless someone is a sociopath or a psychopath, it's likely going to eat away with them. And maybe you want that. But remember, again, these are people themselves. They don't want to feel like the villain of their own story. And they may understand they made a mistake. And to make them out to be a total villain because of mistakes, and mistake is not the fair word, because of bad choices, is harsh. And it can have consequences that I don't think anyone will want. The next quote I want to talk about is, "Yesterday was hard, tomorrow's just a promise of the same. When friends have all subscribed to spitting on the ground to say my name. December in the summer kills the heart. Your hate is no surprise. I guess I have to die to play my part." So this is pretty much what I was saying, and maybe I should have waited until I got here. Corey clearly feels like their mutual friends hate him. It's made him feel cold, even though it's the warm season when he should be enjoying the outside in his life. He's probably sitting in his home doing nothing. And he feels like to satisfy these people, he would have to die. And there it is. Part of depression that is very difficult to talk about. A lot of people who kill themselves either feel like they're doing the world a favor, or they feel like they're doing it in a way to force the world to acknowledge them. And it's hard if you've made a mistake that's caused a lot of people to hate you, not to feel like you're doing the world a favor. But again, this comes down to, if you feel like you've genuinely done something wrong, giving yourself your whole life to earn redemption and to earn atonement, in my opinion, even if you believe there is nothing after death, then you've given up your opportunity to do better. If you believe there is something after death and you believe your actions have made you a good person and therefore you're going to hell if you don't fix things, either way, isn't it better to live out your life and try to be better and try to earn that feeling that you've done something to improve? And if you don't believe in an afterlife, then you're taking away every opportunity you have to do anything differently. If there is no tomorrow after the day you die, isn't it better to take that opportunity now and choose to live it? Give me just a second, guys. I just need to move. Again, I'm having noises from upstairs. So I can understand this point of view, especially when you slipped into depression, when your mind is telling you, no matter what I do, I'm going to wake up tomorrow and feel the same way. You feel like tomorrow is not worth it. But the fact is, and the truth is, eventually tomorrow will get better. It might be slow. It might not be a week. It might not be a month. It might not be a year. But if you work on things and you take things carefully and you open up to people that you know you can trust, it will eventually start to be better. I promise you that. Anyone who is suffering from depression who's hearing this, I promise you, if you take the time to care about yourself and you take the time to find people who care about you, it will get better. And again, I've said this a bazillion times at this point, but if you feel yourself reaching this state, seek help early. It is easier to fix your mental state early than it is to let yourself slip into a cycle of despair. Please seek help. So the next part of this song that I want to talk about, and to be honest, I actually quote almost every line in this song. You close your eyes and join the blind, slit your wrists for peace of mind, turn your back and show us the truth. There's only one way to remember it for you. So this is talking about someone who has a desire to victimize themselves. And this comes up more than once in the album, that his ex-wife has a martyr and sainthood mentality and also a victimization mentality. He believes that she saw him as a project to make better, and when that wasn't working, or when it didn't work out the way she wanted, she painted herself as a victim for the way he treated her or the way they treated each other. And what he's saying in this line is, there's only one way to remember it for you because you refuse to see it from my point of view. And that is becoming a fairly common thing these days, is people don't want to hear the other side of situations, events, and conversations. Try to be open to what another person is telling you and how they feel about something, because how you perceive something and how someone else perceives something can be entirely different. And you should be willing to hear it. Sometimes it is worth hearing, especially if you've both done something wrong. Please, if you're going to take something from this song, realize that talking it out with someone and acknowledging their side of it can do a world of good for both people. Because when you leave things unsaid, one person very frequently winds up getting severely hurt by it. So I don't want to go into that too much more. I don't want to talk about the slit your wrists too much, but obviously that is a comparison to suicide. The next quote is, hold the weight, carry it away, and then never trust the one beside you. You know as much as I do. Do it for what you really love. Use you up until they've had enough. Never trust the one beside you. You know as much as I do. So this is saying that his ex-wife used his damaged pieces to make herself feel whole, to make herself feel better, trying to make him a better person and a more whole person. But he's telling her to walk away and do it all for what she really loves, which he believes is herself. And this ties into that core belief that some people don't do good for the actual sake of they want to be good. And he clearly shows how much damage this has done to him with the line of never trust the one beside you. And that's a difficult part of depression, is very frequently the reason you slipped into it is things to do with other people. And how do you move forward if you have no faith that anyone else is going to do right by you? But the simplest answer to that is there are people who will do right by you. This world is dominated by good people, and it's about finding them. I talked about this before. It's about putting yourself out there and just trying. And if it doesn't work and someone isn't what you need, try again and again. You will find people who are there because they want to be there for you, not for ulterior motives. But I get this perspective because I've had it before, that you can't ever trust the person who you're with. And the damage that causes, even when you find someone, is if you don't trust them because of past situations or past baggage, you're causing damage to the current situation. If you let your negative experiences fully influence your current situation, you're never going to find happiness because you're going to seek out the negatives, and the other people will notice it, and it will sometimes or frequently push them away. So that's something that you almost have to fight with yourself. There's nothing another person can say to you to prove that you need to trust other people and be willing to work with other people. That is just something you need to convince yourself is worthwhile. And it may take a while, but always be telling yourself, it is unlikely the person standing across from me has purely negative intentions for me. Most people don't walk up to someone and just think, hey, I'm going to screw with this guy or gal. They usually want to be liked. They usually want to like you. They usually want to work well with you. Remember that. I'm sure every one of us listening to this is going, yeah, that's how I feel when I meet people. Well, that's how everyone else feels too. So the next quote is, clench your teeth and tighten your grip. Stand up straight, don't let it slip. True victims and survivors learn to make war. I don't want to be another sad man singing anymore. I did it all wrong, so I get it all right. We're wasting all the candles, the dead need no light. So he's, at this point, combining the funeral theme with himself and her. He's saying that she's putting up a front and making a lie to make herself feel better, and that if she lets it slip, she may have a mental breakdown. But at the same time, he is the sad man singing a song, and he has done it all wrong so that he can try to improve. But people are wasting their time trying to give him light because he doesn't need any light because he's already dead inside. Please don't stop listening at this point. The next two songs are more about hope. But this is how depression feels. You're dead inside. So why should other people keep trying to make you feel better when it does nothing? And that is a really serious red flag to the fact that you may have depression. If you get angry at other people trying their best to make you feel happy and trying to put light into your life, it's an indicator that you may have depression. It's that feeling of you don't want to be happy because it's eating you up how sad you are, and you feel like if you take the risk of trying to be happy, you're just going to wind up hurt even more. And other people trying to tell you to be happy, you basically believe they can't possibly understand how hurt you feel if they believe that you should try to be happy. That is a very true indicator of what depression feels like. If you're starting to feel that, talk to people. And that's why I want to quickly move into the next song, which is called Red Flag. And I do believe this is Corey speaking to himself. I think it's about the red flag that you may be descending into depression and becoming what you hate. This is important because part of what I wanted to talk about during Bell Let's Talk is understanding what depression is, what it feels like, and what the indicators are that it's coming. Because that can help you, and it can also help the people that you know. There are warning signs. I promise you. If someone is getting colder, if someone is not engaging, if someone is not coming out in public, those are easy indicators that something is wrong with them, especially if it's long term. But there can also be underlying things. Constant self-deprecating humor, really forced laughter, forced smiles, checking out of conversations when they're in public. There's a ton of hints, and I'm no expert because I know, as someone who's been in a dark place, that it's surprisingly easy to put up a front when I need to that no one sees through. And that's why, even though I think it's important to show other people what the indicators are that someone might be depressed, it's also extremely important to show someone else what the indicator that they might be depressed themselves is. Because sometimes when you put up a front, it's telling yourself to be tough and just get through it, and you're not realizing how severe it is. So it's a mix of two things. It's a mix of teaching people to recognize the signs, and it's a lesson to teach people how to recognize themselves that they may be at risk. So the first verse talks about running, hiding, and trying to stop people from seeing you. This is one of the first signs of depression to me, or at least the depression that I felt in my life, is the intentional isolation to avoid social interactions that risk the chance of someone hurting you. When you're depressed, you feel like no one wants you, no one wants to be with you, and no one can tolerate you. With me, that manifested in I had a severe anxiety of being around groups of people. And I was never a person who had difficulty being in groups in my life before a certain point in my life. I got too scared that when I was in a group, everyone was faking their liking of me and that someone in the group disliked me and they would spread it. And it's one of those things that I can't even explain past tensively, and it wasn't rational. But I also thought it was normal because I thought it was me learning to put up walls and be cautious where I needed to be. And that's part of the reason why depression can creep up on you. You think you're doing healthy things to try to just build and learn and become an adult. But then one day you can just wake up and be like, I've cut myself off from everything that made me happy. I've cut myself off from everything that pushed me to be better. And it's not a good feeling. So, the next quote I want to talk about is that it says, "Strength's not enough. Be defiant. You're looking for a reason to suffer. You'll find it. But if you want to live better, begin it. Your energy will keep you from getting exhausted, and purge it." So this is what another indicator of depression coming on can feel like. When you feel like being strong and simply working through a situation isn't enough, you have to put up that angry, aggressive, dominating front. It's not for everyone. I know a lot of people, when they're depressed, actually turn inwards and don't show almost any emotion, but other people will put up a tough exterior in an aggressive way. It's almost an intentional drive people away. Misery loves company, so you're intentionally making other people feel bad so they understand how you feel. And you don't want to give people the chance to get close to you because you feel like they'll judge what they see. That defiance and that need to stand up to other people, that need to always prove other people wrong, that need to always be contradictory to what other people think, is a personality trait that can come on from that concern that you feel dumb or you feel like people don't hear you. It's not it's not always a part of depression, but I can see that this is a clear red flag that, especially if it's not a normal part of your personality, it can indicate something's going wrong inside of you and that you should address it before it becomes a core part of your personality. Now, the line "you're looking for a reason to suffer, you'll find it." I don't think that's purely how depression works, but I get the point. When you reach the point where you feel like you're dirt, your mind is constantly coming up with reasons why you and the people around you and the things around you are not good, why they're not worth having, why they're not worth dealing with, because you're already in a state where all of those things feel bad. And that's one of the most difficult things about depression to pull yourself out of is you you are literally finding ways to feel worse about yourself because of your mental state where you already feel bad about yourself. So if you find you're getting yourself into these situations where you feel bad and then you're lying in bed and you come up with 10 more reasons why you should feel bad, not because you're intentionally trying to think of them, but they're coming to you, that can be an indicator of your mental state. And if that's going on for more than a few days, that's when you should really consider talking to people. Everyone has a day or two where they're like, "Oh, the world sucks." But if that is how you wake up and feel every day, and when you go to bed at night and you're not falling asleep because you're just constantly thinking of how negative you feel about yourself and how you don't trust the world around you, that's an indicator that things might be going south for you in your mental state. So he's basically saying, if you want to live better, begin it. In other words, don't don't keep pushing it away, because when you feel depressed and you feel alone, it's very easy to just push it off and say, I don't have the strength to do this today, but I will do it tomorrow. If you take the first steps today, tomorrow the next steps will feel easier, and so on. It might take you years to feel better. But if you start taking those steps and you start seeing the progress and the success of those steps, it will drive you to try to take more steps. Trust me, that is a big way to fix it, especially at the start. If you see a situation that you have to cut out, just do it. If you see that you're not doing what you feel like you want to do to keep healthy and fit, and that's bothering you, that doesn't bother everybody, and that's okay. But if it's bothering you, don't just say, I'll go to the gym tomorrow, and then keep telling yourself that for 5 months. Do it that day. Go get yourself a gym membership. Try to go to the gym for 20 minutes. If you think you aren't listening to your friends when they talk to you and they try to tell you about how they feel, take the first step. Go talk to one of your friends you feel like you've stepped aside from and you haven't helped. Go see them and say, hey, I remember you said the other day you weren't feeling well, and I had some things going on, so I didn't engage, but I wanted to check in on how you're doing. Those small steps, and again, I'm just giving examples. I'm not saying those are all of the sources of depression, but those small efforts will make you feel slightly better. And if you snowball them, eventually you will feel better about everything. In other words, if you give yourself some energy, that momentum will continue to push you forward. So, the pre-chorus itself, I think, again, is a mix of trying to get out of depression, but also risking toppling yourself back into it. He's pushing people away so he doesn't get hurt, but he's also cutting people out that led to the situation he's in. That's a delicate balancing act, and it is a mentality that can leave you feeling depressed, spiteful, manipulative, and basically feeling like you're what you disliked in other people. It's okay to cut people out, but remember, don't cut out people who've done you no wrong. Don't cut out people who've made one or two mistakes and are genuinely trying to do better. Those people are the people you should keep in your life. You know, if you have a friend who's done you wrong once and they genuinely seem to be trying to do better, remember, they may be like you. In fact, they're probably like you. They are human. They made one bad choice or two bad choices, and now maybe they're trying to do better because they've realized. Work with people. Most people want you to put in the effort to be their friend, and they're willing to reciprocate it. If they aren't, it's time for you to step away. And that's where the balancing act is. You don't isolate yourself, but you do cut out the bad things and the bad situations that are causing you to feel bad about yourself. The next quote I want to talk about is, he says, "Vultures salivate poison to exterminate. It's the dawn of the Renaissance. In emancipation, cattle on displacement. You want to reason, but there is no response. I won't allow this to happen. Another situation I feel like I'm trapped in. Nothing is my business, and business is gone. I wish you all would blank off and go back to the hell where you belong." So again, this is that mixed feeling of, it sounds like he wants to recover, but that anger is still seeping in. And this is part of that mentality and that red flag warning that you might be starting to suffer, even if it's not full on depression, but you're starting to enter a bad mental state, is if you look at people as, not only are they not good, but you think they're going to actively try to hurt you to make themselves feel good. In other words, they're not just vultures waiting for you to die, they're salivating poison to kill you faster. Very few people are genuinely like that. And if you find yourself in the mental state that you think everyone is like that, that is a mental state that you should address and not push aside. It's something that you should work through and try to figure out how to accept that it is in your head and it's not the reality of the world. And then he says, you want to reason, but there is no response, which, it's difficult because you know that a lot of people will talk to you for good reasons and bad reasons about your problems. You know, a lot of people just want to hear about your issues because they want to hear drama and they want to engage in a conversation they find interesting, not genuinely to help you. And you don't want to respond to that because you don't want to tell someone your full story who literally just finds it interesting and they're only talking to you about it because it makes good conversation. But you have to understand that that's about learning who to show that side of you to. There are people who don't deserve that side of you, and there are people who you can't trust with that side of you. But you do need to work on finding people who do. And I would say commonly that's family, obviously not for everybody, but close friends, relatives. I would encourage being very careful with things like coworkers, because even if you can be close with coworkers, it's hard to bring these types of situations into a work scenario. I do encourage professionalism in the workplace. But at the end, he does say that he won't allow this to happen. It's another situation I feel like I'm trapped in. And that's fair. And that's part of the risk of falling into depression, is you feel like you're constantly risking falling into worse scenarios that will make you feel bad. And that is a red flag. If you feel like every scenario is a risk instead of an opportunity, that indicates that there's something in your mind telling you that everything's going to work out wrong, not work out well. And it's okay to have caution. I mean, I work in work where you need to be careful with choices because things can go wrong. But this is a glass half empty thing. If you're always seeing it as, oh, yeah, I might make a friend, but really there's a 95% chance I'll make an enemy or they'll hate me, that is an indicator that you no longer look at the world in a healthy light. And the thing is having one or two of these things be part of your personality is pretty common. But when they start to pile up and you start to feel this way entirely, that's how you wind up feeling alone. That's how you wind up wishing that the day wouldn't start, but then not being able to end it because you can never sleep. Know that these things don't come on in an instant. They come on over time and they build up. And it feels normal because they are slowly building up. It's like a frog in water that's getting hotter. You're not just going to magically distrust everyone. You're not going to just magically feel like everyone has dislike for you. You're not going to feel magically, instantly, like you can't be out in public. You're not going to magically feel like it's not worth working on things, enjoying things, because it's only going to fall apart. That stuff happens over time. And catching it early is the easiest way to fix it. And I know I've said that 10 times, so I'll move on. Quote, "Plague, don't panic. Don't believe the riddle that confuses you. Blank, I'm saying blank, it's the B word. So manic. I can see the light that exposes you. So dramatic. Now I'm so empathetic. Means the bigger the mouth that I can eat you with. Force of habit. God, you reek of your havoc. But consider the sources you've been tampering with." So this is a combination of your anger coming forward. Again, the more dramatic you get and the more over the top you get and the more hyper angry you get and the more you outwardly force your frustrations at the world, it feels like you're giving someone their just desserts. When really, at the end of the day, all you might be doing is vilifying yourself. And it becomes a force of habit that every little thing someone does to you that's negative, you lash out at it with uneven frustration and anger. And that's not healthy. It's going to vilify you and make you what you dislike. Often, those are the people that leave people feeling so bad about themselves. And part of the risk of depression is you are going to drag other people down with you if you let it become something like this. If you're depressed and you feel sad and you feel alone and you feel angry, it's okay to talk about it. It's okay to get frustrated and upset, but it's unhealthy for you and the people around you if you let it warp you into a monster yourself. And it's important. It's a difficult conversation because you don't want to tell people who are depressed, just don't be depressed. But what I will tell people who feel depressed is do not be the monster that makes other people depressed. If you wreak havoc and you use other people to make yourself feel better in the short term, which this song does cover, consider the fact that the resources you're using to make yourself feel slightly better are people. And those people might wind up feeling the same way you do if you treat them like that. That's a very important topic that I want to reemphasize over and over again. It's okay to talk. It's okay to let it out. It's okay to seek help. It is not okay to turn your anger on everybody and to take it out on everybody. It's not okay to take it out on the people you care about. It's not okay to take it out on the people who are trying to be there for you. To take it out in anger and to intentionally make other people miserable is not defendable. I'm sorry. And I know that's a rough thing to say, but it's also the biggest red flag. It's true that misery loves company. And if you feel like you want other people to feel as upset and sad as you are, again, it's time to look inwards, talk to yourself, and decide whether or not you need to talk to somebody. And to decide, I'm not doing this anymore. I need to do better with myself. I may be sad. I need to work on that. But I'm not willing to do this to other people. I'm not willing to intentionally hurt other people. And that's the balance you need to hit. Work on yourself and making yourself feel better, but also work on making sure you don't make the people around you feel as bad as you do. And no, that does not mean you're spreading it by going to a friend and saying, I feel bad about myself, I need help. That is seeking help. That is different than going to your friend and saying, you're a piece of shit, I hate you, I don't like you, you're flawed, you're wrong about all these things you just talked about. That's the difference of what I'm trying to say. Lashing out at everybody versus talking to people because it helps you and it helps you to move forward. So there's a lot of things in that song to break down. It's a very difficult topic. Again, I would want to reemphasize, I am no expert. I'm speaking from my own experiences, and I'm speaking from the desire for people to see indicators that they may be slipping into depression and when it's time to go seek someone who can help you get out of it as soon as possible. And I like the fact that the next segue is called What's Next, because I do think this is the part of the album where Corey and the band shift from those feelings of depression towards how do you get better. And I love the fact that later in this album, there are clearly steps back where the lead singer and even the music falls back into that angry rage, because it shows when you decide you want to be better, it doesn't mean you're going to be better every moment of every day. It means that you need to work on improving that emotional state and work on trying to keep it with you longer and longer. No one is always happy, but it's not healthy to constantly be sad or constantly be angry. And I like the fact that it ties that in. There are clearly spots after this point in the album where Corey falls back into angry fits, but it's not all of it. There's acceptance. There's trying to self discover. There's efforts to be better. There's efforts to better himself. There are all these things that I see as improving your own state of mind through your own actions and through working with the people around you, which I think are important for people who are suffering depression. Some of it is on you to work on getting your mind straight. Some of it is on your friends and your family to try to help you and try to be there for you. And some of it is trying to make sure that you wind up in situations that are good for your state of mind. There's a lot of things involved, but you can't take away your own ownership of your own mental state. It is you, it is yourself, and you need to always be telling yourself, I am human, I'm trying to improve, but I'm not flawless. Let's move on. What's next is clearly meant to sound like a distorted fantasy land. I've heard it described as a fairy tale that's distorted, and it leads into something that is very distorted, which is spiders. I hear this song and I think about spiders and webs crawling all over your brain. And I know that's a disturbing thought, but especially for me, I have arachnophobia. But I see it as this is the itch in your brain that as you're trying to recover, it still has moments where you have those pesky thoughts in the back of your head that say, well, what if I'm not good enough? Well, what if I reach out and try to do this? It goes badly. That's what I see this song as. It's the webs that tie your brain together as you're trying to get better and pull on it and strain it, and the spiders that crawl around and eat at your attempts to do better. I think it's good allegory, especially if I got it right. But I think the song is almost entirely about that desire to self-improve your own mental state. And I know I'm not saying that right the entire time. I'm trying to think of ways to word it. Please remember, I'm not an expert. I'm not saying these things with any malintent. I'm not trying to say, fix yourself, just do better. I am trying to think of words to describe what I'm trying to say, but I know this is a process. I know it's not easy to do it alone, and I know it's not anyone's fault that they're depressed. It is never your fault that you are in this mental state. It's a scenario that you fall into slowly, and it's very hard and very long to work out of. Please understand that I know that. Let's carry on. The first quote, and I am basically going to quote this whole song again, is, well, you can go it alone or keep it in between. The pages of the books you burn so no one gets to read. The fingers pull your stitches tight, but knowing someone's secret is not enough. Everybody is a little bit all of the time. So, first of all, Stitches is, again, this is the first clear reference in this part of the album that this is about him trying to be better. He's pulling together the wounds, he's trying to make them heal, but he's also burning the pages of the book so that no one can see what actually happened to him. That's a difficult part of recovery. You want to show people enough for them to understand, but you still have the mental state of, what if they judge me? So sometimes you do try to burn the parts that you don't want people to see, the parts that you don't want people to know you felt. And it's a balancing act. It's your choice if you want to show everything to someone or not, if you only want to show them pieces. But it's a risky thing. If you hide too much, people might not fully understand. And again, pick the people you show everything to, but it is common. You burn your emotions down, you burn your thoughts down, you even try to etch away your own memories because you don't want people to see it. And then again, this is another indicator of trust. He says knowing someone's secret's not enough. In other words, just because someone trusts you enough with their secrets when you're trying to recover from depression, even if someone tells you their deepest, darkest secret, it's still hard to believe that if you tell them your deepest, darkest secrets, especially about you being depressed, that they're actually going to keep it to themselves, especially if you've been burned before. So that's why I love this song, and I was excited to talk about the song, is it talks about that difficult road to recovery. And then he reminds himself near the end of these opening lines that everybody can be a little bit a lot of the time. And at first I was really confused because I thought bit was bitter like it is later in the song. But I actually like the fact that he says everybody is a little bit a lot of the time. He doesn't say what they're a little bit of. And I love the fact that that means everybody's a little bit good, everyone's a little bit bad, everyone's a little bit happy, everyone's a little bit sad, everyone's a little bit angry, everyone's a little bit at peace. People go through all those emotions in one day. I love that he chose to say it that way because it's true. When you're on the path to recovery, remind yourself, even though you're trying to do better, you're not going to be happy every second of the day. You don't need to force yourself to be happy every second of the day. You still have the right to get frustrated and sad and angry at situations. You just can't let it become chronic. It's that chronic state of mind that is depression. So then the next quote, well, actually, I'm going to briefly talk about the chorus. Again, it's that those thoughts in your mind of the people that you're letting back into your life might eat you alive. They might take advantage of you. They might hurt you. I think that's what the chorus is about. So I want to go into the next verse. When now is not the time, tomorrow disagrees, but your real world isn't ready to face the face behind the real me. The time to think it over. I'm over trying to overthink. I've had enough. Everybody's limited to what's on their mind. In other words, this is the core difficulty of getting out of depression is your mind will forcefully force you to overthink everything. It will lead you to question everything you're trying to do. But at some point you do have to say, that's enough. I need to just try. It doesn't matter. If you're already in the state of feeling really bad about yourself, taking risks is going to be a benefit. Eventually something's going to stick that helps. And if you don't take risks, you're going to just stay in that state of mind. And I think that's what he's trying to say. And again, there's the contradictory of he's telling himself the world isn't ready to face the real him. And yet he knows that if he doesn't stay true to himself and he doesn't show the world his real face, then he's not making progress. And he's also saying, well, now is not the time, which is how depression works. You keep telling yourself you're going to do better tomorrow. You're going to put in more effort tomorrow. You're going to try to talk to people tomorrow. But then tomorrow, it disagrees. I'm not the day I'm going to do that. But you can also take it as tomorrow disagrees. Today is the day you should do something. And I love that you can flip that back and forth. And I like that when you get to the mentality of, no, tomorrow's not the right day to do that. Today is. That's when you'll start to make steps. When you tell yourself, no, I've said tomorrow too many times. It has not helped. Today is the day I'm going to take the first step. That's when you'll start to see goodness in your life again and happiness in your life again. And then, of course, everyone's limited to what's on their mind. In other words, the core part of depression very frequently is you can't get out of your own head and all the negative thoughts you're having about everything. It's hard when your mind chooses to limit you. And again, it's subconscious. It's a weird thing to describe, that your mind is basically telling you things instead of you consciously trying to think them. But you're limited to that. It's difficult to think about other things when you're constantly obsessing over the negative and your fears. But you can also limit your mind by choosing to try to think about the good things. And that's, again, a process. Trying to remind yourself, today I'm going to talk to one of my friends. I'm going to send a text to that friend I haven't heard from in a while. I'm going to try to engage with my school project a bit better than I did yesterday. I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to go for a walk and enjoy the outdoors just for 20 minutes. That's when you, again, start to see improvements. So then we get back to the topic of Corey's ex-wife. I still find these parts hard to talk about because I think the flip side of this is when you're talking this negatively about someone in public, you're risking causing them this kind of depression. You might risk putting them in the scenario that you're in yourself, and I don't agree with that. But I can respect his choice to talk about it the way he has, even though I wouldn't do it. So he says, make yourself a martyr's pet and watch them all escape. Make yourself at home instead and you'll lose your toxic ways. Going alone, suffer for your feelings, I'm not enough. So this shows that back and forth of trying to be better and telling yourself how you know you'll be better versus questioning whether or not you actually can be better. And it's a difficult show, but it's the truth. You're not going to wake up tomorrow and tell yourself, I'm a good person. I deserve to be happy, and just believe it. It's not going to happen. That's not how it works. But you can tell yourself, I deserve to go for a walk, and I deserve to see the sun, and I deserve to feel warmth, literal warmth in this case. Get yourself outside. You can tell yourself, hey, you know what? Today I need an ice cream cone. An extra 200 calories won't kill me. It'll make me feel better. Now, don't constantly overeat to make yourself feel temporary happiness, but it's not a bad idea to just say, hey, look, today I had a rough patch. I'm going to order that small pizza. It is what it is. Yeah, it's probably not great for you in the long term to eat a pizza on your own, but just to help yourself get over that hump as you're trying to improve. Back to the actual song. So what he's saying when he's talking about being a martyr's pet and watching them all escape, clearly, again, it's about his ex-wife. She sees herself as some kind of saint who came to him, tried to improve him, tried to make him happier, tried to make him a better person. And when that didn't work, she victimized herself, and therefore she's made herself a martyr. That's how sainthood works. She has I would call it a martyr syndrome. She walked in, she tried to be the saint in the room, and when that didn't work, she made herself the victim. And then he watched all of his friends leave him as she spread those rumors. That's just what it is. I'm not going to comment on it anymore, but I think that's what he means. And but I do like the next part where he tells himself, make yourself at home instead, you'll lose your toxic ways. In other words, he knows that he never felt at home with his ex-wife. He felt like he was her pet project. And that didn't make him feel happy. It didn't make him feel warm. So he knows if he finds a home where he feels comfortable with what's around him, he feels comfortable with his work, he'll begin to shed his negativity, his aggressiveness, his frustration, his sadness, his cold personality. He's acknowledging here those are toxic traits. Those are the traits that hurt the people around you. And eventually, it is healthy to shed them back off. So I like that he's acknowledging that. But then he has almost a backstep. Go in alone, suffer for your feelings, I'm not enough. That's a backpedal on what he just said. And that's going to happen. You're going to make a new friend, and you're going to have a thought like, I'm not good enough for them. Or you're going to join a new hobby, you're going to join a new sport, and you're going to think, geez, I'm not good at this. I shouldn't do it. Those are natural thoughts. The difference is to tell yourself, I'm going to try anyway and see what happens. And if this time it doesn't work out, I'm going to try again at something else. There aren't many people on this planet who walk into every situation feeling confident. And then the last line, and I think this is an important line, is everyone's bitter all of the time. Everyone's a little bit bitter all of the time. I like that line because it does tell you to remind yourself, even the people who put on a perfect smile every day, even the people who are genuinely happy most of the time, have moments where they feel bad. They have moments where they feel regret. They generally will have moments where they feel guilt. And they generally have things in their past that you don't know about that they also wish didn't happen the way they did. It happens to everybody. And I'm not saying it as oh, you feel bad about yourself, so does everybody else. I'm saying it as, use it as a reminder to tell yourself, these are normal emotions. I'm trying to do better. It is normal for a person to have a moment where they think about the past with pink glasses. It is normal for someone to have a moment where they question whether or not they're good enough for something they're doing or for someone they're with. It's okay to have those thoughts. It's also okay to tell yourself, yes, I am good enough. Yes, I deserve to be with people who make me smile. Yes, I deserve to cut out the things that don't make me smile. Yes, I deserve that break when I need it. Yes, I deserve to have a mental state where I don't hate life. There's no one on this planet that doesn't deserve the chance to try to be better. Even the people who deserve punishment and deserve to get what they deserve the opportunity to try to do better with what's left of their life. It is important to know that. There are things that people can't take back. There are people who don't have regrets about things they should have regrets about. But the conscious choice to try to do better, and to try to do better by yourself, and to try to do better for the people around you, is something everyone should have the right to do. And you should tell yourself that. If there's one thing you take away from today, you have the right to try to be happy. And you have the right to try to make improvements on the things you believe you want to improve. And you have the right to try to engage with this world and to try to make it your own and to make yourself feel at home in this world. And everybody, there is a way to feel that way, but it will not come easily. That's not how the world works. I'm not going to be the person who stands here and tells you it'll just be better. You just need to accept that you're happy. You need to put in effort. And it takes a long time. And there will be relapses. But tell yourself you deserve to make that improvement. I'm going to end on that note, guys. I don't have much more to add. Next time, I will be coming back to you with the last 4 songs of this album. That's songs 11, 12, 13, and 14, which are called Orphan, My Pain, Not Long for This World, which is my favorite song on this album, and we will talk about why when we get there, and Solway Firth. I think it's important that if you've listened to the end of part 2, you hear part 3, not because I'm trying to self-promote, but I think this album is important that if you're going to listen to it, you should listen to it all the way through, because it covers falling into depression, being in depression, and then trying to get out of it. And if you don't hear the whole thing, you may come away with beliefs and thoughts about the situation that I don't want anyone to have. Unfortunately, it is just too hard on my voice to record this all at once. I wish that I could. But guys, please, if you're stepping away from this section thinking, God, that was depressing in and of itself, that doesn't make me feel any better. That just reminds me that the world is a bad place. Please come back for part 3. It's still going to be rough. This album doesn't end entirely happily, but it does cover a lot of important things coming into its final act. So guys, I will see you next time. Have a great day.